Dear students of class 10A and 10B, welcome to my history class. As you know, I have decided to teach two previous lessons, lesson number 1 and 2. It is due to unavailability of some old videos. I have decided to help you by way of teaching these two lessons. I am actually re-explaining it for your conveniences so that you can understand it in a better form and can write correct answer. Now, first point number 1, disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Second, treatment given to Nana Saheb and Rani Lakshmibai. Third point, absentee sovereignty of the British. Fourth point, British policy of British policy of discrimination. And fifth point, plotting of Zenat Mahal. First point, disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Who was Bahadur Shah, my dear students? You know very well, Bahadur Shah was the last Mughal emperor and was pensioned by the British and was residing at Red Fort, the old palace and capital, old palace at Delhi constructed by Shah Jahan, you know, Mughal emperor Shah Jahan. So Bahadur Shah, the last Mughal emperor, was living there with his family members. But suddenly in the year 1849, Lord Dalhousie as the Governor General declared that the successors of Bahadur Shah would be unable to, use the, would be unable to live in the Red Fort. The successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would be unable to live, would not be permitted to use the Red Fort as their palace. In 1849, under a circular, Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie, communicated a message that Bahadur Shah Zafar's successors would not be permitted to use the Red Fort and would have to shift to a place near Qutub Minar. How much insult is it? You see, Red Fort, which was constructed by Shah Jahan, it belonged to the property of the Mughals. Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor, was living along with his family members there. But suddenly, by passing one circular, Lord Dalhousie in the year 1849 declared that Bahadur Shah Zafar's successors would not be permitted to use the Red Fort and would be shifted to a place near Qutub Minar. Very funny, very insulting. And at the same time, another Governor General, Lord Canning, in the year 1856, when the Sepoy Mutiny was not taken place, 1 year before the Sepoy Mutiny started, in the year 1856, Lord Canning declared another circular. He is passed another circular, and according to that circular, a message was communicated to Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar that Bahadur Shah Zafar, after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, his successors would not be allowed to use imperial title with their names. That means the successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would be unable to use the royal title with their names. Right? I am Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last Mughal emperor. That system would be accepted till Bahadur Shah Zafar would be there. But after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, no successors of Bahadur Shah Zafar would be allowed to use the imperial title or royal title with their names. and would be considered as mere princess. So it was also a great insult to the Mughals. The Mughals felt very much insulted at the same time the Muslims of India, since they belonged to Mughal dynasty and the British was insulting them directly. That's why the Muslims of India, they felt very much insulted for the Mughal rulers. Consequently, at the same time, the British decided to capture many important places of the Mughals, of the Muslim rulers. Many Muslim zamindars, talukdars were maltreated, humiliated at the hands of the British. That's why the Muslim people of India, they grew very much angry because of their anger, because of their resentment. Many Sipahis who actually were Muslims and were in the British Army decided to start an agitation, and it was another reason of the Sipahi mutiny or the first war of independence. The Sipahis start agitation. The Sipahis start, the mutiny against the British. Second point, my dear student, treatment given to Nana Sahib and Lakshmi Bai. Who was Nana Sahib? Nana Sahib was the adopted son of last Peshwa Bajirao II. After the death, Bajirao II, was given pension. But after the death of Bajirao II, Nana Sahib was not paid any pension. Why? Because Nana Sahib was not the legal heir to the throne of Bajirao II. He was the adopted son of Bajirao II and was forced to live at Kanpur instead of Pune, since Pune was the place of the last Peshwa Bajirao II. And under the system of the doctrine of lapse, my dear students, the adopted son was allowed to take only the private properties of the deceased ruler. Private properties like ornaments, like cash amount, like many belongings, household goods, like that, but not territories. After the death, under the terms of the doctrine of lapse of Lord Dalhousie, no Indian ruler's adopted son would be able to utilize the territories of his dead father, territories of the deceased ruler, but only the private properties. That's why Nana Sahib was not allowed to live at Pune but at Kanpur. Not only that, after the death of Bajirao II, Nana Sahib's pension was stopped by the British. It resented Nana Sahib. So Nana Sahib decided to organize movement against the British. And hence, he took help from Tatia Tope. Tatia Tope also agreed to help Nana Sahib. So, the soldiers of Tatia Tope, Nana Sahib fought against the British in the Sipahi mutiny. Later on, we shall teach you. Next point, Rani Lakshmi Bai. Rani Lakshmi Bai, was the widowed queen, widow Rani. Rani Lakshmi Bai's husband suddenly died, and after the death of her husband, Rani Lakshmi Bai's adopted son, Anand Rao, was not recognized to be the legal heir to the throne of Jhansi. Rani Lakshmibai did not want to surrender the dignity and honor of Jhansi before the British. So he decided to fight against the British. He openly said, I will not leave 1 inch of land of Jhansi for the British. I would rather fight than leaving the land of Jhansi for the British. And ultimately he declared war against the British. Although he was defeated and killed in the battlefield while fighting, yet a message he left for the sepoys of India and the other rulers of India that the honor and dignity for the country would be better option for them than surrendering before the British. That's why, far from doing the work of making peace treaty with the British or accepting the terms of the doctrine of lapse introduced by Lord Dalhousie, he decided to fight against the British. And that's why the fame and glory of that very Queen of Jhansi is still relevant to the modern history of the world. That once he fought and he fought like, tigress. Although she was defeated, but she fought bravely, boldly. Although Jhansi was annexed by the British, yet the contributions of Jhansi and its rule and its Rani Lakshmibai encouraged the sepoys of India a lot, which they utilized while fighting against the British during the First War of Independence of 1857, my dear students. And next one, absentee sovereignty of the British. Absentee sovereignty of the British. What is this absentee sovereignty? Absentee sovereignty means India was a country ruled by the British from England. India was a country whose people paid taxes to the British, but the British drained that amount to their own country, England, without spending a single amount of money for the welfare of Indian people. My dear students, once upon a time the Mughals also came to our country. The Mughals were from Afghanistan, came to India with a view to establish their rule and ultimately establish their rule and prove that they were efficient rulers. They spent a lot of money by way of collecting taxes from Indian people and spent it for the welfare of our country's people, for the welfare of the people of our country and the all-round development of the people. But the British, they also established their rule in India like the Mughals. They also belong to foreign country, but on reaching India as a trader, they ultimately, by adopting the policy of plotting, by way of adopting the policy of annexing Indian territories, Indian states. They annexed so many Indian states by adopting the policy of outright wars, by declaring wars against Indian rulers. They captured many Indian states and ultimately almost all states of India came under their control and they all became the rulers of India. But on being rulers of India, what did they do? Nothing. They only started humiliating Indian people, discriminating Indians. They started collecting huge amount of taxes from peasants, farmers, from all group of people of India, but they never spent the amount of money which was required for the fulfillment of Indian people. They never spent such amount of money which was required for the all-round development of our country and country's people, but they drained that amount to their own country, England. This basic difference between the Mughals and the British resented Indian people, Indian common people, Indian educated people. They felt the mentality of the British. It gave a birth of discontentment among the Indian peoples. My dear student, Indian people realized that the intention of the British was not good. They did not want to help Indians, but they wanted to make money at the cost of Indian people and India's wealth. Ultimately, England became a center of controlling the entire system of administration for the Indians. India was a great country, a large country, but was being controlled, was being ruled by England. And the amount of taxes which was collected from them, the British never spent it for the welfare of the people of this country, but they drained it to their own country for their own development, own growth. So ultimately, the people of India, they gathered strong support of people of different parts of different states of India, and they unanimously decided to support the movement started by the Sipahis, Next point, plotting of Zinat Mahal. Who was Zinat Mahal, my dear students? Do you know? Zinat Mahal was the wife of the last Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar II. Bahadur Shah Zafar II, during the last half of his life, when his health was broken, when he was not mentally happy, physically happy, suddenly in the year 1849, Lord Dalhousie declared that after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, his family members would be unable to use royal titles with their names. After the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, Bahadur Shah Zafar's successors would be unable to use the Red Fort as their residence, and they were supposed to shift their residence from Red Fort to a place near Qutub Minar. This circular of Lord Dalhousie resented not only Mughal rulers but the Indian Muslims, since the Mughals were insulted under that circular, under the terms of that circular of Lord Dalhousie. After a few years later, in the year 1856, 1 year before the Sipahi Mutiny started, Lord Canning declared that Bahadur Shah Zafar's successors would be unable to use the royal title with their names and would be considered as mere princes. It also resented Indian Muslims because it was a great insult for the Indian people, since the Indian rulers, since the Mughals were independent rulers and the Britishers forced them to accept pension, and now they were interfering their personal affairs by way of insulting them directly. That's why, my dear students, Lord Canning's declaration and announcement harmed the sentiments of not only the Mughal rulers but also the sentiments of the Indian Muslims. This decision of the British hurt the feelings of the Muslims. At the same time, Bahadur Shah Zafar's wife Zinat Mahal, it is due to that reason Zinat Mahal began plotting against whom? Against the British. Zinat Mahal felt very much insulted because of the circulars of the two respective Governor Generals, first Lord Dalhousie in the year 1849 and second Lord Canning in the year 1856. You know, Lord Canning was a person who once became Governor General, at the same time became the first Viceroy of India. Who was he? He was Lord Canning. He became the Governor General first and then at the same time became India's first British Viceroy. Who was he? He was Lord Canning. That very person circulated that after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, his sons, means his family members, his successors, would be unable to use royal titles with their names and would be treated as mere princes of India. It resented not only Indian Muslims but the wife of Bahadur Shah Zafar to Zinat Mahal herself. Zinat Mahal herself began plotting against the British in order to take revenge of that very insult. She was forced to consider. But it was due to the effort of Begum Zinat Mahal, the Indian sepoys and Bahadur Shah Zafar ultimately accepted the leadership of the Indian sepoys. The Indian sepoys were encouraged, and when the proposal for taking leadership of the sepoy mutiny, Bahadur Shah Zafar initially denied politely, but under the inspiration of Zinat Mahal, ultimately Bahadur Shah changed his decision and took the leadership of the sepoy mutiny. Up to this, my dear students, next day the remaining part will be continued. Thank you.